One Sunday morning in 1776, Pastor John Muhlenberg stepped up to preach from the book of Ecclesiastes. He read, "There is a time for all things, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to harvest." Then his voice began to rise as he read, "There is a time for war and a time for peace. There's a time for all things, a time to preach and a time to pray." The pastor then looked out over the congregation and said, "But there is also a time to fight, and that time has now come." He then removed his black clerical robe to reveal the uniform of a colonial officer. He then stepped down from the pulpit and challenged the men of his congregation to join him in the fight for liberty. 300 men followed Pastor John into the war for American freedom. James Caldwell, a Presbyterian pastor, preached so forcefully for freedom that the enemies of freedom called him the rebel priest, and they stalked Caldwell so that he wore 2 pistols when he stood in the pulpit. When Paul Revere made his famous ride to warn that the British were coming, he was riding for the house of Pastor Jonas Clark. Sam Adams and John Hancock were already there. Now, for you liberal college graduates, they're the men who signed the Declaration of Independence. They asked Pastor Clark if the men of Lexington would fight, and he replied, "I trained them for this very hour. They will fight, and if need be, die too, under the shadow of the house of God." America needs such men of God again today because our freedom is threatened by a force much more sinister than the British ever were. The forces of extreme immorality and perversion are threatening our children and our freedom. And if American churches do not answer the call, then I fear that the USA will soon pass into the dustbin of history, and our people as well. T-Teams USA is working to bring back the Black Robed Regiment, Christian men and women who are not ashamed to be Americans who serve the King of Kings. Phyllis Ballou is our faith-based outreach director, and Rick Mitchell is heading up the Black Robed Regiment project. Men and women who will stand with courage against the invaders, and if necessary, fight to the death for what this nation stands for. One nation under God that defends freedom and protects children. This is Wild Bill for America. Thank you for watching, and America bless God again.